First of all, I like to thank all the ladies and gentlemen who have come, especially from the international media. Uh, as you all know, we have had this very unfortunate incident on Sunday, Easter Sunday, when two of our churches and one church of the Assemblies of God were attacked by some people with bombs, and as a result, a whole lot of people were murdered. They had come for their Easter obligations on Easter Sunday to the church, and then suddenly this happened almost in the middle of the ceremony. In one case, this attack came just after the sermon of the priest at St. Anthony's Church, Colombo. The other attack came at the end of the Mass in Negombo. So through these two attacks, more than 150 people were killed in these two churches alone. Then of course we have the 30 deaths recorded in Batiklo at the Church of the Assembly of God, Assemblies of God. So with this, there was a very difficult situation created for us, not only in the light of what happened to the people concerned, but also in the light of the ongoing relationships between the different religions in our country, because there was a serious risk of misunderstanding and possible clashes between the communities, which we had to avoid as much as possible. So what we did was to immediately get down to calling up with all these leaders of the different religions, including the Muslim community especially, and to try to establish an understanding with them in order to control the situation. And I had to also make a very special request to the Catholic community not to react against what happened, because very often the young people, they get worked up when such things happen, when a lot of dead bodies were being taken out and taken to hospitals. Some of them lose their patience. So we had to do a lot of controlling of emotions and try to ensure that nothing more serious happened after that. So this is how that day passed on, and then we had to then bury these people, and ever since then, starting from Monday itself, all these days we have been burying the dead in different places. Those who came to St. Anthony's Church, Kochikade, were a group of a little bit a mixed group that came from different places in Sri Lanka. Because this church is not a parish church, it is a shrine, and therefore people come who like to come to this central place like a shrine without any particular identities. So with regard to the people who died there, we had more difficulties in identifying, because they had come from all over Sri Lanka. Then there are some who are working in Colombo and are lodged in temporary residences, and for them to be identified, it was even a more difficult case. Whereas in the case of St. Sebastian's Church, Negombo, it was much easier, because most of them were from the same village, except for a few people who came from outside, who were passing through and then came into the church and they were killed. We were able to identify them eventually. But in the case of the Colombo people, still there are some bodies that we have not been able to identify in the general hospital in Colombo. So that was the situation with regard to the casualties, and then the control of the situation. Soon after, of course, in Sri Lanka, we have very good relationships with all the four religions between us. We have our various inter-confessional bodies that meet very regularly and discuss issues with them and have an understanding of how to solve such problems and how to ease tension if it arises. So because of that, we have had, it was quite easy for us to tackle the situation of peace and harmony. Though of course tensions could run, and in the initial stages the Islamic community was feeling a little bit nervous and possibly worried about the possible reactions from our side, but I could assuage them that not to have any fear, and that we will, and also I gave strict instructions to my community not to do anything rashly, and also not to raise their hands against any other person. So with this kind of situation, we were able to, with the help of all the priests, Catholic priests from that area, we were able to control the situation quite well. And then subsequently we had various prayer meetings, various gatherings of interreligious nature involving Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims and Christians, and everybody understood that this probably was an attempt to provoke us unnecessarily, and also that it was not with any religious motivation that this kind of attack took place, because it is very important for us to make the distinction between what we believe and practice in religion and then what these terror groups who identify themselves with one religion sort of try to portray in their actions. To make a neat distinction between what is it to be a good Muslim and what it is to be a person who hurts the others, or to be a good Catholic and what it is to be hurting other people. So this way we were able to overcome that situation satisfactorily, and so far there is no trouble, and we hope it will continue and ease off as time goes on. So this is the situation. Now we will have to also think about helping these people, because in the case of most of these people in Negombo, what has resulted is in trauma. They are heavily traumatized because they have not that they have suffered economically, but they have suffered the shock of having lost loved ones, and sometimes in a tragic manner. We have, for example, an entire family of 7 people wiped out. There is no one living today. So the question is asked, what are we going to do with all these properties and things like that belong to them? Entire family had been wiped out. Then there was a case where one lady lost her husband and her 2 children. And there's another case where the husband lost his wife and his 3 children. So he is left all alone, she is left all alone, and this is a terrible trauma that they have to go through in life to have some strength. This kind of situation can lead to suicidal tendencies also, so it is important for us to do a lot of counseling and help these people to ease off from that kind of tension. With regard to the people in the city of Colombo, those who died in St. Anthony's Church, there are more economic needs for such people, because they more or less, most of them belong to the economically less privileged communities. And it was actually a Tamil language mass that was being celebrated in that church, whereas in Negombo it was a Sinhala language mass that was being celebrated. So that's the situation with regard to the help we have to give. On the one side, we have to help them to rebuild their psychological and spiritual strength, and on the other side, we will have to help them to rebuild their lives. So these are 2 other matters which concern the people affected, And secondly, we have, on the other side, we have the need to reconstruct the buildings that were destroyed, the churches. So, and what is important to note is that the people who died many people were seriously injured by falling tiles from the roof. After the bomb killed many people, those who were saved had to face an attack of missiles coming from the top with these broken tiles that were falling down on them. That happened in Negombo, and many people were very badly injured due to those things also. So these are the consequential things that happen after the event, after the blast. So this is what we have, we can share with you with regard to what happened. It's really a sad situation. Many people's lives have been shattered, and I have personally felt a great loss for me personally, because I have lost my community, part of my community, and this is something very sad, because they went to church hoping that they will be able to go back home with their children and all that on a beautiful day, on Easter Sunday, and so on. Then of course there are those attacks that happened in the 3 hotels, which also had a Easter nuance, because these hotels organized brunch and Easter brunch. So the people who went to have their meals, either breakfast or lunch or brunch, they went there with an Easter nuance, that they were going to celebrate Easter. So that also has to be counted, that there were lots of people who were killed, and many foreigners had also succumbed to their injuries. So it's really a very sad situation. We are sorry about it, and we hope that we can get out of this situation as early as possible. So having said it, I would now like to invite you to, if you have any, there's one little thing, one little thing is that now a lot of people have requested us for information with regard to help they could give to these people and how to channel this help. So the Archdiocese of Colombo has opened accounts. The account which we have opened is named Relief Fund for the Rehabilitation of 2019 Easter Sunday Victims and Reconstruction of the Churches. This fund, we are operating a bank account in Colombo at the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, Borella branch, that is this little town here adjoining the Bishop's house that way. And the account number is 119 00 38741. We have also the SWIFT code CCEYLKLX. This is the SWIFT code of this account. For those who wish to make contributions, they are most welcome. And we will operate these accounts and do the work through a coordinated body, which will consist of architects, engineers, people who can attend to this work, and we will give a briefing every now and then about what we are doing with this money. When you credit the money, you are requested to tell us which category you want to help. Do you want to help the people directly, the people concerned, or do you want to help in the reconstruction of the churches? These are the two main things that we have got to do. You can indicate for what purpose you are giving the money, and that will be used only for that purpose. That's what I wanted to share. Yes, madam.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm Elizabeth Palmer from CBS News. Have you had any explanation yet for why you were not warned about the imminent
bomb? Well, we didn't know anything, and it came like a thunderbolt for us. But later on, in the news that came out, it was revealed that some information had been given by a secret service in a neighboring country that this kind of attack was being planned and it was going to happen. And the President yesterday told me that They had even indicated the places where this attack will take place. But nobody informed us about it. And there was we asked them why, but they don't seem to have an answer. Only answer we got was from that minister who said his father told him that there was going to be some kind of attack, and so don't go to the church. So that was a bit unfortunate, but of course the minister also clarified the matter with me and said, well, my father is an elderly man, and I don't know where he heard about it, so I didn't think that it was such a serious matter, so he didn't inform anyone.
But don't you feel that the intelligence agents who received the warning should have called you? Or someone should have informed you?
I think so.
And
I think very much that they should have informed us, but due to some reason we never knew about it. Whether it is neglect on the part of the officials who received this notice, and they didn't take too much of seriousness on it. For example, the Defense Ministry Secretary, he has now stepped down. He had told in an interview that they never thought it was going to be so serious. But I was thinking that even if it was going to be less serious, they should have told us, so that even that kind of harm could have been avoided. But it didn't happen, so we are very sorry about this whole thing, and we have lost our lives. That is a very serious situation. We have already issued many statements on that, but the statements, what can we do? We can't give life to those people who died. So it's a very serious lapse on the part of the security agencies that they didn't tell us about it. Yes.
Tom Cheshire, Sky News. Do you then blame the government for these deaths?
We don't know how to blame whom, because now even if we blame, what can we do? These people will not come back to life. This is a very sad situation.
And do you think Christians are safe now in Sri Lanka?
Who?
Christians, are they safe in Sri Lanka?
I think so, because as far as we are concerned, except for a few skirmishes that have happened here and there, due to probably misunderstandings on what type of the church, construction of new churches and things like that. Whenever a new church is to be constructed, there are certain rules and regulations that we are expected to follow, and then the local people, they start making little resistance to that, because they want to know how many families of that particular religion are there who will need to go to the church and so on. So there's a set of regulations that have been put in place in order to avoid any friction between the majority community and the minority communities. This kind of rules have been made, but so there are a few tense situations that arise here and there, but by and large there is no real religious persecution as such.
After the attack, we feel that Christians are safe?
I think so. I mean, in the sense that we don't know what the plans of these people are, whether they are aiming to attack us, because there have been some news that has circulated that they will continue to attack the Christian and Catholic and Christian churches continuously. So our people feel nervous. That is why we have had to decide to curtail the services, our masses and all that. Now, for example, this particular coming Sunday, we have stopped all our Catholic masses. So, and we have advised the people to stay indoors and say their prayers with their families, because we don't want a repetition of this, because this particular group that calls itself ISIS connected, they have threatened to continue with these attacks indefinitely. So this makes our situation difficult. Yes.
Don't you think, Your Eminence, that there is a legal problem? The Prime Minister is saying that according to the law governing the freedom of speech, they can't actually arrest people for hate speech. And although there were demands from all religions to arrest the hate preachers. Zahran Hashim, for example, continued to preach despite the demands from the Muslim community. Don't you think that the hate speech shouldn't be allowed by the law, and that there should be some reforms regarding to with regard to the law that governs the freedom of speech?
I think that should be a very important move in the light of what happened here, to move in with legislation to curtail hate speech against any group, any religion, any thinking, because this can cause unnecessary friction and violence, because there are certain values. If people attack those values, human beings get excited about it and then they can react to it. So we have been talking about this, the government and other political parties have been talking about this for a long time, but no one has really bailed the cat, So this is what has happened to us. We hope that with this kind of situation coming in now, that they will do that, and they will have some mechanism to check and control this kind of situation.
But in your meetings with the authorities, did you actually ask for that?
Yeah, we have asked for that. We have asked that there be some controls on this kind of thing, especially language that incites the people to violence, in the name of religion, in the name of an ideology, in the name of something, you see. So that is very important for us. Yes.
So I'm very sorry for your loss, and you've described how traumatized your community is here in Sri Lanka. Do you think that the Catholic community has been let down by the government?
Afterwards, after the event, the government came in a big way to help us in many ways. They have promised us that they will provide security to the churches for the services that we have to conduct. They have told us that they will help to reconstruct the churches, that they have decided to help these families by a grant of 1 million rupees per victim, and then a certain amount of money for those who have suffered injury. So all those things have come in after the event. But I think it was more important for us if we only knew about this threat, and we could have avoided that trouble altogether. So that's where we feel a little bit let down by the government. But we don't know again. They all say, no, I didn't know. No. The other one says, I don't know. I didn't know about it, and so on. So everybody is passing the baby here and there. But in the end, we have lost our life and limb of our people.
You have said there will be no Sunday services this coming weekend, but what
we have advised, due to the ongoing situation that is prevailing and the continuing threats that have been leveled at us, we have decided that we will not allow our people to be killed unnecessarily. So we have stopped all the Sunday masses until further notice. So once we have the security situation better, then we will try to introduce some services, maybe a smaller amount of services, so that with proper security systems in place, like vigilance groups monitoring the churches and ensuring that no strangers walk in all of a sudden with these kind of bags that they carry on them and so on. So we have been made to become more alert than we were before.
That must have been a very difficult thing for you to have to say to people, particularly at this time, that they can't come to their place of worship.
Yeah, it has been very difficult for us, because some of these cases we have no answers to give them, because when they recount their personal drama, we don't know what to say. It's a real situation, pathetic situation.
You said you are receiving continuous threats. What kind of threats you are receiving?
What kind of?
Threats. How do you receive
Now another document has got out, and we have seen that where the defense establishment has warned among themselves that there could be further attacks, there could be this, there could be that, and so on. Among themselves, this was a security establishment that circulated this information among themselves, but this particular document got out through some leakage and came to our hands. So that is why we know that there are further threats in the future.
Can you describe how you felt when you saw that document?
Well, I felt betrayed a little bit, sad, because everybody says, no, it's his baby, it's the other one's baby, but they must get down to brass tacks and help us to get over this thing, and to go on with our normal life. Yes, sir.
As you mentioned earlier that it wasn't religiously motivated.
Yeah.
Right. For the very fact that 3 churches on an Easter Sunday mass were targeted. So how do you justify what you say?
Well, it is true that because how can we justify violence for the sake of religion? So when this kind of thing happens, we have to understand, either they don't understand the religion, what religion is all about, or that they are instrumentalizing religion. I think the second case is even worse, because you instrumentalize, you use religion in order to justify political agendas behind it. Because this global attempt to, take over power and create a kind of a caliphate or something like that is a political agenda. It has nothing to do with religion. The normal Muslim believer is a peaceful person. But then, unfortunately, this kind of politicizing has creeped in and has misled some of these people. We also believe that sometimes maybe the people who commit suicide, they themselves don't know who is behind it, who are the forces that are pushing them to do this kind of suicide in the name of religion, within inverted commas. So that is where we have a problem. Yes?
Even if you're going to have the service on Sunday, do you have any plans to mark a week since the attacks, or any plans in the future for a memorial?
Now we have got to rebuild these churches, because we cannot have any ceremonies inside those 2 churches. So we will have to rebuild those churches. Until then they will, now at the moment we have said we will not have any masses right now until further notice. Once we assess the situation and we are sure that this will not happen again, that we can provide adequate security to the people who come to the church, then we will start in a small way introducing masses and see whether that can develop into something more and eventually return to the position we had before the attacks. Hopefully these misguided people will understand that it is not correct for them to do that to us and allow us to carry on with our normal life.
Do you have an assessment of the damage, and how much are you expecting to rebuild?
Those 2 churches were completely destroyed practically, except the main structure is remaining, but inside has been completely destroyed. So we have to redo it. Practically the roof in both churches has to be redone. Similarly, the electric wiring, the plumbing, all these matters have to be done up, and then beautifying the church as it used to be, we have to restore it back. So there will be quite an amount of money that has to be spent. So we hope that Providence will help us.
How does the country move forward now?
That's another very important question. So we hope that with our interreligious efforts, getting together, discussing about these issues. Yesterday we had a meeting with His Excellency the President and all the religious leaders of the different faiths. We sat together and discussed about these issues. There are lots of things that have to be done in order to create more harmony and understanding among us, and to together identify these people who are trying to provoke us into fighting each other, and then move forward in that sense in creating unity and harmony among ourselves. That will have to be a long-term project which we have to do. We are still to get over that situation right now.
Is there still a sense of fear that something like this might just reoccur?
Now we have had a 27-year conflict in Sri Lanka earlier also, in the question of the Tamil community and their rights. So we still have to get over that, find a permanent way out of that situation. So while we try to create that kind of solution, we'll have to think of also the other religious groups, how they will find their balance in our society. So that we have to work a lot on that. Once that kind of religious and ethnic peace and justice can be established, I think the country can recover. Until then, we are still walking on pins, on blades. Yes, we also, I have been talking only about these two churches in Colombo, but you also will have to ask from the other community, the Assemblies of God, about the help they might need to reconstruct their churches. So, their church, we have to think of those also. So, I would ask you to find out from them what they really require, because we are all brothers and sisters in the same faith. Right, I think if you have no other questions, thank you very much for your interest, and we wish you all a good stay in Sri Lanka, those of you who are from outside. Thank you very much.